Now, all of us use social media. We've seen reels, social media apps which are coming out showing how people and students in rural areas are now using technology, how technology has now integrated in classrooms across rural hinterlands. And today, in our next conversation, we bring you a man who is behind this innovation. He represents the power of innovation in education. He's the man who's introduced QR-based textbooks in rural areas in Maharashtra, and a reason, in fact, why his story really touches my heart, and I'm sure all of yours as well, is he's extensively worked on the ground to improve education for girl child. He's extensively worked on the ground to ensure that they can use technology in a better way to facilitate their learning. So let's welcome our next guest, Ranjitsinh Disale, in conversation with my colleague, Gesu Bharadwaj.
It takes a lot to go on the grassroots level and to educate children when you don't even know their language. And he did that. He went to Karnataka. He went there without knowing their local language, but he had the determination to teach children, which is why he spent years learning the local language first, and then he translated textbooks in real time for children so that they could better understand what was written. And the impact was such. In a class where there was less than 2% attendance earlier, there was about 100% attendance later on. Not just that, many people also graduated. For a village school to achieve that height, I think this was the first time that was seen, and exactly why he's been given so many awards for his work. So welcome to Republic, sir. We're very excited to speak to you about your journey. And I want to begin by understanding, how did this motivation come to you to begin teaching for, to do something without any credit at all? Your work is not bothered by credit. You did it in a rural setup. Yes, awards came, but they came much later, and it's not like they were planned. So where was the initial motivation for even beginning a thing like this?
First of all, I'm very glad to be here, and thanks for having me. Even though you call me teacher or the world's best teacher nowadays, but I'm an accidental teacher. I never thought of being a teacher. I'm a 90s kid. I wanted to become an IT engineer. I'm a huge fan of technology. Even nowadays, I love the technology. So I never wanted to be a teacher. I accidentally came into this field. I went to engineering college. I did first semester there. And after the first semester, I had to drop out from the college. So I was mentally harassed and I was physically harassed. So I went back to home. And my father, who was a teacher, he advised me, Ranjit, you want to be a good man first, and then you can tackle the challenges that you have. So I told him, like, what I can do? So he told me, why don't you join a teacher's training college? I said, why? So he said, you will be surrounded by nice people. The teachers in the college will help you to grow, and they will change you the way you are now. So initially I was hesitant. I didn't know about how teachers are being trained and how their lives look like. I initially went there for 6 months. My plan was just stay there for 6 months, and then in next year, I'm going to change the college, and I will go to follow my dream, becoming IT engineer. But those 6 months in the teachers training college changed me a lot. The teachers in the teachers training college inspired me a lot. They fueled a passion in me, and I realized that teachers are real change makers. They can change the life of every student. Like, you remember every teacher in your life, they change you a lot. So the way I experienced that thing, I realized it's time that I should continue that. So after 6 months, my father again called me and said, Ranjit, do you want to continue this, or you want to change and go back to engineering college? And so then I said, no, I'm enjoying this thing. I want to continue. So I went there and continued my education. And after the 2 years becoming a training, finishing the training, I decided it's now my time to change the life of other students. So this is how I came into this field. Even though I came in this field accidentally, but I'm still enjoying the way I'm teaching, the way I'm talking to my students, and the way they are progressing. It's a phenomenal thing.
It is phenomenal indeed, and not just for you as a teacher, but for all of us as people of India. I think we realize that education is key. That is what's going to drive India's growth story. But I also want to now understand from you, you know, education could have been many things. It could have been going to a private school. It could have been, you know, earning a big salary or a package and doing just a few hours of your regular teaching and coming back with students who understood your language or your intellect. Why did you choose to go to the rural areas and begin with schools that are in villages? Because teaching there is a challenge for sure. So why was that choice made? What was the motivation behind choosing to go to the grassroots, to go to those who are underprivileged, and to go to those who probably do not get free access to education?
You know, since childhood, I have experienced the two, India and Bharat. So the India is shining and the Bharat is still developing. So I thought where I can contribute the most, and I thought of being in Bharat will be really helpful to me to understand the problem what these rural people are experiencing. To bridge the gap between people living in cities and people in the rural areas, I thought education might be that gap, the bridge that will bridge the gap between those things. So that was the main reason. Second thing was that the way my fathers and my mom, they nurtured me, they were, every day they were telling us like, you have to work for the people, those who needs others. You don't need to work for the people who are already have their wish and now everything, already they have achieved everything in their life. You have to work for the people who needs you the most. So when I finished my teacher's training in the college, I thought of where I can contribute most. And rural area, especially in Maharashtra, where I come from, I thought the rural areas might be the key to develop the Bharat and then becoming into that India kind of a thing. So that was the main reason I decided to work in the rural area.
Right. So, in fact, I also would like to understand. Now, this question could turn out to be a bit, you know, sort of controversial, but if made to choose, would you choose the satisfaction of being recognized for your work? Harvard has recognized you. Global Teachers Award, you've gotten a recognition. You've also gotten $1 million for the kind of work that you've done over so many years. So would you choose the satisfaction that one gets from being recognized? Or would you choose the satisfaction that one gauges from the outcome of the task that they've done, the impact that they can cause? So is knowing that, you know, you have made rural girls graduate a bigger satisfaction, or is the award a better satisfaction?
I don't think awards makes you happy or satisfaction. It's like small thing that happens in your life. If you get $1 million, oh wow, that's good amount. But next day you have to start from the scratch. It's like Sachin Tendulkar scoring a century, but next day when he played the next match, he has to start from zero. So this is how the awards play a role in my life. I get it, but next day I have to go back to my classroom and teach. Where I find myself satisfaction is being in the classroom. The small children, like 6, 7 years old children, they are very innocent. They listen to you carefully. Now you are adults, you don't listen to your family, right? You have your own decisions, you can make those decisions. But being in the classroom, being with those kids, those who are curious, those who want to learn something, I think I am more satisfied or very happy in those things. You talk about the satisfaction or happiness, 4 things makes me happy. First is family, second is faith, third is friends, and the fourth is my work. And I work in the classrooms, and that's where I deal with students. They are very innocent. They ask me so many crazy questions like, today I'm coming here, so yesterday when I was leaving classroom, he told me, why are you going to the Delhi airport? Why don't you join that conference from the classroom? I said, oh, that's a good idea, but they don't want to do it online. That's why I'm going to there. So one of the students asked me, can I join you, sir? I want to see that Republic TV and how these people are doing. I said, no, I don't know about the organizers if they allow me to bring my student, but this is how those students ask you questions that you are not well prepared for. So I always like to tackle those challenges in the classrooms and also answer their questions, because to answer their questions, you have to prepare. And this generation of 21st century, the students are so smart. And I'm a teacher of 20th century. right? And what I'm teaching them is a curriculum of 19th century. And my techniques are 18th century old. So I always have to try to become a teacher of 21st century. And in the classrooms, the students help me to become a better teacher every day by asking those questions, being those so curious. And I always try to turn that curiosity into the actions so that I can be a better teacher every day.
Right, sir. In fact, needless to say, anytime you bring your students, our newsrooms are the most open place. We welcome everybody, especially students who would want to, take a glimpse of the newsroom. So that's set aside. Now, speaking of the awards, since that's where the conversation started, you were also awarded $1 million. Now, for anybody here who does not know, might need like a recap, the Global Teachers Award recognizes very few teachers from across the globe for their exceptional work in, of course, the field of education. And he was one of the persons to be recognized. Along with that award comes a $1 million check. And that's exactly what he got. But what changed was, so you chose to share that with about 9 other teachers. So I want to understand the reason behind why that might have happened. You got the money, you got the award money, and then you went on to share it with 9 other teachers from the same field. So what drove that?
That's a good question, but do you remember, a couple of questions back, you asked me whether you choose satisfaction or not. And I think sharing that $1 million prize with 9 teachers was a deliberate decision to make myself happy and satisfied. See, getting $1 million makes you happy for 1 day, 2 days, maybe 1 year, 2 years, and the money will go, and then what's next? My philosophy is that teachers work for the outcomes, not for the income. Teachers, what they do, they share their knowledge, they share their skills, and I decided to share the money. But the reason I decided to share that, to leverage the impact. I'm teaching in a small classroom in Maharashtra, but now that $500,000 giving to other 9 countries, the teachers in those countries are making larger impact. In the classrooms, I wouldn't have imagined to have the scholarships named on me in Italy. Or I never imagined that students in North Dakota would be getting scholarship from my prize money to them. We opened a library in Vietnam. We are generating digital content for special needs students in Brazil. So these kind of things were possible just because of sharing that prize money. My only purpose was that I want to leverage the impact, not only in India, but beyond India, because we often follow the principle like Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, right? So the world is our family. So why don't I share that prize money with the 9 teachers and tell them that this is how the generous Indian teachers are. They're not working for the income, they're working for the outcomes.
What a good thought to actually conceptualize this entire thing with Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, because for sure, we're Bharatiya, we believe in that. Also, I want to understand, sir, what are the kind of challenges that you face, especially in rural classrooms? Now, anybody would think that, rural classrooms means underprivileged children. It would mean families that are hesitant to send their children for a formal education. They would prefer that their children would go out and start working at a young age to get money back home rather than be educated, and spend that much time on textbooks in classroom. But this case becomes a lot more complex because this is not just about underprivilege, it's about the intersection of gender and underprivileged societies. He has worked for children in the rural field, yes, but specifically also for girl children. That makes it a lot more complex. If women like us, women like myself and everybody else who's sitting here, if we as privileged women face problems in our lives, then it's only but obvious to recognize that women who do not come from privilege face a lot many more challenges than we do. Possibly we can't even step into their shoes or understand what is it that goes on with them. So in the intersection of a rural society and gender, what are the kind of problems that rural classrooms face, especially in terms of women or girl children who come to study there?
I don't think, or you could relate those problems sitting in that Noida studio room, but where I teach, like tomorrow I will go back to my classrooms, it will not having big classrooms. Or I started in 2009 where I don't have a classroom, because one of my classroom was occupied by a politician in the village. So he had captured that room and he was living there, his stuff was there. So it took 6 months for me to get back that classrooms. I had to call the police intervened, he thrown the stone at me, so it was a chaotic thing. Can you imagine, I was 20 years old at the time and I was struggling to get the classroom first. So my problem started from the day one. First, to get the classroom. Second, how can I get the students in my classroom? Who would like to be in that classrooms which is having a cowshed, which was like in between the cowshed and a storeroom? Nobody would like to get that. So second challenge was to get the students in the school. The reason was that the people in the villages, they don't actually trust or believe in women or in the girls' education. Their thought is that women are not made for education. Their job is to just get married, raise the children, and do all the household things. So that is why they were not sending the kids in the classrooms, especially the girls. And as you rightly said, only 2% girls were coming to my schools. And 98% of them were just raising their siblings and taking care of household things. Third thing was that the parents' mentality. Just like I told you, they don't believe in education of their children, especially their girls, because they have seen that those who were educated in the village, they were doing the same thing, like going in the farm. So they ultimately become the farmer. So education didn't change the life of others. So they thought that, oh, education is just a waste of time and waste of money. So these three were the challenges, biggest challenges initially I faced. And the fourth was, the girls were getting married at very early age, because this is how the society was thinking about the girls. Let them get married earlier and let them go stay with their husband and other things. So these four challenges I faced initially when I started teaching. But now when I look back and see how that society has now developed in last 15 years, with all the technological intervention I implemented, all the innovations I started in the classrooms, in last 10 years, there hasn't been a single child marriage in my village. And the reason that girls started getting education, Sakshi became the first graduate after 70 years of independence in our country from my village. That's a huge pride moment for me. Even for you, getting graduate, it's maybe you can say, oh, it's not a privilege. Like, everybody gets graduated in Noida or in Delhi, but from the village where even after 75 years of independence, there is no commuter way. I have to walk or I have to use my own bike. Otherwise, there is no way to go to my school. So these are the biggest challenges people in rural villages are facing. And how you imagine that a teacher would like to work in those areas? There is no classrooms could be there. They're not. Electricity was not there. So challenges are multiple. There are so many challenges. But I think people who face the challenges, they ultimately become the winners. If you don't have any challenges in your life is very smooth, I don't think we are living the ultimate of good life. So these challenges makes me very strong, determined teachers to face the challenges and overcome those things.
So that's indeed that's a detailed lowdown of everything that you've talked about, right from the challenges that the students face, right through how you choose to tackle them, the kind of ideology that you go by when it comes to challenges. But also, going forward, what do you think can change? There's a lot of change, of course, that can come in, especially related to rural education. I have been on the field myself. I can attest to what you're saying. He just spoke about how classrooms are doubled up and they're used by, farmers to sort of keep things, store grains, or they're used by local politicians, the panchayat body, as storerooms. So school buildings are made, but teachers don't show up, and these buildings are then used for other menial tasks. So no education is happening. I've seen that on ground in Bihar also. What are the kind of things that you think going forward can change? Right from, beginning from the government's intervention, because of course the state has to intervene and state must. So what do you think can change? The state's intervention, the kind of thoughts that people have, and what do you think is going to drive that change? How do you think that is going to happen?
I think nowadays society has become so much aware in the rural areas about education. Now they started believing in education and they started investing in education. 15 years ago when I started teaching there, students were not showing up. Now teachers are investing their education. If they think this private school is doing much better than the public school, then they are sending their kids to the private school and they are investing in education. So the change in the mindset of our parents has happened now. So what change we need in the school? The first is teachers' mentality. We need to change, we need to become a teacher of 21st century. This country wants teachers of 21st century. What I mean by that, like I earlier said, our teaching styles are very old-fashioned. So we need to change that, because just imagine if you are now young generation people and if somebody is giving you lecture, you don't like it because you started living in the era where social media has already started. So you know how to digitally learn and how to engage with those things. So teachers have to engage the students and give them learning experiences. Lecturing is not learning, or lecturing is not teaching these days. Initially it was, like let's go back in ancient time when the guru and we went to their houses. It is called ashram. So students were going to ashram, gurus was giving them lectures and they were learning. Then that shift happened. Guru went to school and teachers started going to school and that place became the school, right? But then the COVID happened and everything got disrupted. Students were started sitting at home, teachers were sitting at home and they were talking to each other through that video conferencing apps. But now, going back again on the normal side, we need to have more engaging pedagogical aspect in the classrooms so that students learn better things. So I think first change will be in the classroom teaching, like how teachers could be teaching to the students. Second change I imagine with the introduction of new education policies since 2020, our curriculum is rapidly changing a lot. And we want our generation to be more skill power. Maybe by end of 2030 or 2040, the Skill India movement has started already working on ground. So education is now currently linked with your employability and ability to earn the money, because ultimately your goal is to get money because you want to sustain in the life. Education has to help you to sustain in the life. So these two changes are happening right now, and I think we will grow by the time.
Right, sir. In fact, just want to quickly get your opinion. Where do you see yourself going forward 5 years? Awards have happened, recognition has happened, change on ground has happened, is happening. But where do you see this journey going maybe 5 years from now? Where do you see yourself? Do you see yourself in the dedicated service of education even in 5 years? Or are there any other bigger plans that we can be eyeing?
Oh, that's a good question. I have my goals set up like 5 years plan and 10 years plan. So my 5 years plan by year of 2030, I will have almost 10,000 Ranjitsinh Disale like me. I want more teachers in the classroom. How am I going to achieve this target? So we are going to start a fellowship for the teachers. I was talking to this gentleman from IIT Delhi. We are starting to interact or engage with teachers and researchers and practitioners, how we can prepare the better policies and better informed teachers. So I'm going to train the teachers. I want more and more Ranjitsinh Disale. One Ranjitsinh Disale is not enough for entire 1 billion populated country, so we want more and more teachers. So my short-term goal is by year of 2030, I will be training and I will be having more than 10,000 Ranjitsinh Disale in 10,000 different classrooms across the India. For my longer term goal is that by 2035, 10 years from now, I'm switching my role from classroom to the policy space, because what I experience in the classrooms, policy that we make, let's say in Delhi, often fail on ground. So there is a gap between policy and practice. And I want to bridge that gap through the evidence. What practices, best practices are happening, and how these best practices can inform the policymakers to better design the better policies. So these are the couple of short-term and long-term goals I set up for myself.
Right, sir. In fact, to actually have somebody being foresighted enough to think that they want to not just work, but bridge the gap between policy and practice, like you said. So anybody who comes from the ground should finally be the person who leads the policy directive also, who sort of tries to make the government understand the kind of steps that have to be taken, and that can only be best done by somebody who has been on the field like you have. But other than these questions of, oh, where do you see this going forward, etc., I want to understand tomorrow when you get back, what does your ideal day look like? What happens when you first enter the classroom? What are the kind of reasons with which you step into that class? What is the kind of thought process that you sort of think you will change or reinforce within the students that are sitting in that class?
Tomorrow when I go back to my class, so my students already given me assignment, what I'm prepared to do for themselves. So I'm already clicking the photos, how the airplane looks like, how the Delhi looks like. They have so many questions, they already sent me a list. So I'm just answering those questions. Tomorrow I'll go back, I will tell them, oh, this is how the Republic Media's studio looks like, and this is how the Delhi looks like. So they have so many questions. So my role is tomorrow, like let's say 2.5 hours, I'm just going to answer their questions. Because this is how my normal day start. I think teacher's role is to answer the questions of the students, not just to start the day by delivering the content. Every day teachers teaching should start by answering the questions, and we need to promote that asking question culture in the classrooms. So tomorrow, just answering the questions, half an hour day, I'm going to spend that like that.
And just one last thing before I let you go. For students who can possibly not hear you from here, this is an English conversation, but just to put it on record, for students who want education, who have the drive to do something in their lives, but do not have the resources, what is the kind of messaging that you would have for a student like that? Because I don't think that, us as journalists or anybody else can motivate a student as much as a teacher can. You started this entire conversation by saying how impactful teachers can be, what are the kind of changes that teachers can bring in people's lives. And I can't attest for anybody in this room except for myself, but I think more than remembering my classmates or my batchmates or even friends from back school, I always remember my teachers. And I've changed about 11 schools in my life. Even then, I remember my teachers fondly. I know the kind of changes they've made for me. I know that it is but their motivation and their contribution after my parents to place me wherever I am in life right now. So what do you think, is a teacher's impact going to be? And what is your message for a student that wants to push harder, just probably doesn't know how to?
That's a good question. I think Mr. Kumar, the Bihar person who was talking, Anand Kumar, sorry, and he gave it a very good message to you all that work hard and pursue your goal, right? My message would be just follow 3I formula in your life. First I stands for identify. Identify who you are. What are the problems? What you want to do. So first, identify yourself. Second, innovate. Once you identify yourself, once you identify any problems, once you identify your goal, just innovate how you're going to achieve that goal. Just like she asked me, where do you see yourself in next 5 years? So I have my goal. I identified who I am. Now I'm innovating that solution the way I want it. And the third is implement. Innovate and then implement. Implement your plan. Implement your innovation, no matter whether small-scale innovation or large-scale innovation. In 2014, when I created QR-coded textbook for my students, it was a very small idea. Nowadays, everybody, you can see the QR codes are everywhere. But that small-scale innovation implemented in a right way, and you see now every students in the government school across the India, they are using those QR-coded textbooks. So my message to you is to follow 3I formula. Identify, innovate, and implement.
Very nicely put together. Just one more thing, just like a closing thought. India is on the road to become one of the fastest growing economies in the world. India is leading some of the biggest firms across the Western world, especially in the United States. Silicon Valley will come crumbling down on its knees in case Indians decide to turn their back on the United States. And at least 7% of all Fortune 500 companies, their CEOs, their founders are all Indians. Other than that, also, Indians are some of the best to be there in the market if it comes to, streams like STEM or even medical. So I want to understand from you, how will you introduce skilled or technical knowledge into the classrooms? Speaking to students, getting them to graduate is the first step. It's the first step to bring them to a level that they've not seen before. But that is not going to be sufficient to make avenues open for them in their lifetime. So slowly, how do you see that change also panning in? How do you see technical education sort of becoming a part of rural environments where people can't even start with languages? They don't understand their textbooks. How do you introduce complex ideas like AI, technology, medicine? How does that happen?
Yeah, that's a good question. But I think government has already started taking initiative through the Atal Innovation Missions, and Atal Innovation Labs are already set up in
Atal Tinkering Labs.
Yeah, sorry, Atal Tinkering Lab. Atal Innovation Mission started the Tinkering Labs. So I see those kind of initiatives have already started moving towards the Skill India movement. Teachers nowadays need to actually adopt those things and implement those things to use those. Thanks so much.
Right, sir. Thank you so much. That was a fruitful conversation indeed.